Hi. So at YPlan, we believe that in order to be successful, you actually have to understand what is the biggest problem of your customer. And today I'd like to show some of the mistakes that we made and some of the lessons that we learned while trying to figure that out. So what we do is we basically sell tickets. This could be described in a more fancy way, but essentially this is the gist of it, right? And it all started 3 years ago with simple sort of understanding that in cities like London, New York, and San Francisco, there's so many things that you can actually do, but there isn't a reliable source where you can quickly find stuff, find events, and book them. Right, so before even embarking on this journey of trying to build a product, the first thing that we did is we asked our customers, or our potential customers, how do they plan their free time, how do they go out? And so that's something that we really heard quite often is that we don't plan, right? People don't want to spend time researching and looking for different options and planning, and they decide quite spontaneously, and therefore these decisions are not necessarily the best. So our first product was pretty much reflected that, right? We had only 3 events any given day, which you could pick and book on your mobile phone, right? So it was pretty straightforward, very simple, and our first customers really loved it. We got some good PR, and so the number of customers grew, and pretty quickly we realized that there's no way we can cater to everyone with just having 3 or 4 events. So the number of events increased quite dramatically, and we realized that we became this sort of like a corner store where you have a lot of stuff crammed into a little tiny space, which is your mobile phone. And there's a lot of problems with this approach, right? So first of all, people can't really or don't get how are these things related, right? There's this knitting classes, for instance, next to this woman with fire doing something, or they don't really know what they can expect to find once they come back, right? Because it seems that there's arbitrarily different stuff being pulled into the app, and every time they come back, there's different stuff once again, and there's no reliability. Right, so 2 years from there, we realized that we need to add some structure perhaps to this, right? So we thought, okay, maybe we move from this corner store approach to more like a Sainsbury's approach, where you have milk in one section, then vegetables in another one, and so everything is clearly defined with boundaries. And it's really good approach when you have customers that actually know what they're looking for, so it's sort of really easy to find stuff like on Amazon, right? If you're looking for diapers, you go to diapers and here you go. However, our customers, they don't really know what they're looking for, right? So basically what they expect from us is to provide this discovery element that they can actually find or get inspired by things, right? So we basically had to figure out a middle ground between really structural approach and really chaotic, sort of all over the place approach. Something that we could do, though, is we could predict the intent with which people come, in which people decide to go out. For instance, if I'm going out with a girl, if I'm going on a date, I might be tempted, so doing this cheese tasting might be appropriate, right? Or going to this romantic aquarium Prosecco thing. But you're probably not going to do the wrestling, usually. Similarly, we could understand the context, right? So if it's Friday, people are likely to book nightlife events or go drinking, right? So we ended up with this pulling all the events and grouping them into these collections, which allowed us to measure their performance, right? If one of those perform better, we make it more prominent. If another one doesn't perform, we take it away. And similarly, we could react to the context, right? If it's raining, we would probably collect a bunch of stuff that happens indoors. So another thing that we really spend a lot of time is understanding what is the motivation of our customers, right? Why do they use us? And what we hear very often is that people really like the quirky and niche stuff that they find on YPlan because they can show off to their friends, right? Because they can say, hey, look, this is the thing that I know about, and everyone thinks that you're some sort of an expert in something, right? However, looking at the data show that quirky stuff accounts only to a fraction of the bookings, right? So, well, our discovery process was pretty much based on what we were assuming, that people would just scroll down the feed until they find something that they like, click on it, and book it. Right? However, the reality is that a lot of people are drawn by big names, like if there's the Beyonce concert, they would book that. Similarly, people are drawn, and this is no surprise for anyone who works with e-commerce, people are drawn to discounts and great deals and savings. So we had this dilemma, right? We have this really loyal customer base who were early adopters, and they adored us for keeping it simple and really having this highly curated hipster-type content. And then we have a lot of people who book this big stuff, and they obviously make us money as well, right? So we don't want to alienate them, any of those, right? But we can't put them together in a single product. Therefore, we decided to add additional platform, which is website, that allowed us to pull people directly from PPC or wherever else to the content, foregoing the discovery process on the app altogether. So similar inconsistency in people's understanding of their behavior is in how people perceive their planning habits, right? So a lot of people say, or a lot of our customers say, that they wouldn't book more than a week in advance. So they perceive themselves as being really spontaneous, right? And therefore, our booking, oops, it's supposed to play. Anyway, so our booking process was pretty much built on that. You click on the event, you pick a time, you pick number of tickets that you want, and you're ready to go. However, for the people who book the big stuff or the more expensive stuff, their behavior is more like airline customers, right? Where you really book far in advance in order to get the best deal. And people are really flexible with their dates because they understand that it's worth, it can allow them to save a lot of money. Right, so we pretty much, drawing on that experience, we pretty much rethought our booking process on the website by allowing people to see more dates and mapping all the prices using this heat map that allows instantly to see that there's the cheapest ticket available one month in advance, right? However, what we quickly learned is that it's not, in events like theater, for instance, it's not about the cheapest price, right? It's usually about the value that you get for your money. So for instance, the same show, if people go to, let's say, Lion King, and you're really close to the edge, to the stage, is one experience. Where you're someone here behind the pillar is totally different experience, right? And so what we really needed to do is to be able to communicate the value in their what value do they get for their money in the booking process. So in the theater industry, it's pretty interesting. It's always been encoded into these beautiful lithographed seat maps, right, where the owner of the venue would use some color paint to indicate the more expensive seats versus the cheaper ones, and then he would give it away to agents, like this agent gets a row A, this one gets a row B, to resell. So in the 80s, with beginning of computers, it all got digitized, but no one really thought about how to make this a better experience, right? They pretty much just took the seat maps, redraw them, make them ugly, and that's it. So to improve that experience, obviously this is an old industry and it has a lot of rules and that we couldn't change, but one part that we could change is we could make the actual booking experience better. And to improve that, we took all the venues in London West End Theatre and actually vectorized them, which allowed us to use them, dynamically indicate which seats are more expensive, which seats are better, and sort of a combination of those would communicate a value. And this on itself became a device to book. So you could book only by using the map itself, as opposed to going through a list of seats that we have available. And so having spent all this time on this single category, what we really learned is that the more supply you have in a given category, the bigger the conversion is going to be, and the more people are going to buy in it. However, going back to the sort of brick and mortar metaphor, where people really trust their local butcher or local craft beer store, and they think that they would get a better value because that person specializes only in that thing, and therefore he knows his product, right? So this is the question that we're debating right now, and I'm going to leave it open. What's the best way for the product like ours is whether to have everything or to specialize in something and have a bunch of different products. Thanks.